Hang on. See if you see it as a dummy, as a like non-ed instead of our real account. Maybe it'll. Here we are. Okay. This should be it. All right.
Yep. So mute that.
Okay.
And then we got to start recording on Zoom. Hopefully people are enjoying watching it.
So now, Sandra, if you could just mute yourself and your video. And for the first 28 minutes, we're going to get everything going. And then we're going to invite you on. All right, Ed, are you ready?
Hold up just one moment.
It's working. Oh, you're doing that.
I may get rid of this because I'm going to do it again. There's something interesting that happened. So hopefully people who are watching live on YouTube are loving the action.
I hope you didn't say anything.
I don't think so. The good news is you got the joke, right?
Yeah.
When you start, we anticipate. All right. All right. This is going to be a great show. There's so much new stuff happening. I'm just going to do one last little new thing, and then we're going to get started. I want to share it to the people on YouTube, just Facebook, so they can tune in. All right.
All right, so it's working?
It's working. Are we recording here?
Now that's this part. You ready?
Yes.
Welcome to The Funniest Thing.
Yes.
Where each week we share stories about how stepping out boldly always leads to better than expected outcomes.
That's right.
I'm Darrell.
I'm Ed.
And we're broadcasting live from middle school studios in beautiful downtown Culver City, the heart of Screenland.
That is correct. Are you speaking directly into your father's cigar?
Yes, you got to hold these. We just found out the microphones have to be perfectly horizontal to our mouths.
Yes.
Similar to if you're sharing a cigar with your dad.
Today's show is called Opening New Doors with Reverend Sandra Campbell. Your life is prospered by the opening of new doors, being open to new ideas and doing new things. We must ignore the old, worn-out, overly concerned ideas that keep us stagnant in our familiar zone. Trusting our intuition rather than our rigid rules opens us up to more possibilities, new opportunities, and unexpected blessings. On this episode, Darrell and Ed encourage listeners and each other to treat themselves to life by opening new doors, knowing God is waiting on the other side. Unity Minister, the sensational Sandra Campbell, will join us during the second segment and open us up to accepting new and improved experiences with today's reading, Open Door. Open Door Policy.
This is an open door show.
That's right. Oh, speaking of an open door,
what?
You want to share where you're going to be speaking? Because we are streaming live on YouTube, so those people can tune into your show tomorrow.
Yeah, that's going to be live on Facebook. But
yes,
if you're in or near Ventura, California, which is just north of Los Angeles, just south of Santa Barbara, come to Unity of Ventura at 10 a.m. and you'll hear me give a great lesson titled "Let the Genie Out of the Bottle."
Yes. And how did that tell the quick story of how that came about? Because it forced you to let go of the old and then trust in the new.
Yes. Well, what happened was, this is the thing we always try to highlight on the show, because you become more aware of how incredibly precise God's divine order is always working. You know, some people call it grace. You can call it divine order. Is always working, even when we're unaware of it. And the way to always be, to be able to reinforce this and to stay connected with it is a morning routine. You got to plug in the morning.
Right.
Any great spiritual teacher will tell you. And remember, here at Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed, we know that when you set the bar low, you set yourself up for success. So you don't have to commit to a half hour of heavy duty meditating or anything that seems like it's going to be too big of a commitment for you to do. What was suggested to us in the beginning was simple, 7 minutes. Do you have 7 minutes before everyone wakes up in the house to wake up a little early, have your coffee, and read some inspirational readings and just sit in the silence and imagine yourself basking in God's love? Can you do that? Yes, I can do that. And that's just taking 7 minutes to plug in. And you will be amazed at how just doing that, how significantly your life will transform for the better. The other thing we recommend, which I wouldn't even be able to reach to be able to share this story or be aware of it, is to connect, unless I connect the dots. And we always recommend we connect the dots. So that way, when something doesn't seem good, we can discover, aha, there was good in it.
Yes.
Because if that had happened or didn't happen or happened differently, then B, C, D, and E wouldn't have occurred. And look where I am as a result. This is incredible. So it keeps us from resisting change. Mm-hmm. It keeps us open to new doors. And the third thing, which I didn't mention, but is important, because I only said two things, is to be able to say yes when it feels like a hell yes, instead of discouraging yourself out of it, and to be able to say no when it's not a hell yes,
right,
instead of talking yourself into doing something that didn't really feel 100%. And just last week, Ed was saying, from now on, when it comes to this show, we're not going to do anything that doesn't feel like a hell yes. If a guest doesn't feel like a hell yes, we're not going to reach out.
Yeah, and in particular, I was talking about things that there's two of us. So if it's a yes and a no, it's a no. If it's a no and a yes, it's a no.
Yes.
Not unless the both of us, because we both have intuitive hunches on things, and we both will get, I don't say misled, but somewhat misled by like our over enthusiasm in certain cases. We get blinded by certain things, but we know when both of us are just excited and it's a yes, and it's just simple. Yeah. And by saying no to things, people, we actually increase the amount of respect we have for ourselves and the amount of value that we have. And then I think other people sense that about us. Because being able to say yes and no, it also makes the game fun.
Yeah.
We can say yes, we can say no, and everything's not riding on every decision like that. God will show us the way. We'll get nudges one way or another.
Yeah, so this whole story began last week when I got a hunch to take my car in to have the brakes checked, which
this is going to how you led to you talking tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because every single piece had to occur.
Okay, good. Okay.
So
I'm going to grab some popcorn too, because I haven't heard all these pieces, just like our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, this is amazing. So last week I got the hunch to take my car to the dealer to get the brakes looked at. Even though I just had them replaced 3 months ago, I kept going, nah, it doesn't need it. But this hunch kept coming up.
Right.
And it's not something I'm enthusiastic about doing, folks, just so you know. I got to wake up super early, take it considerable miles away from my house is where the dealer is. So I said, okay, I'm going to follow this hunch. I'm not going to argue with it. I wonder what wonderful thing is going to come of this. So it was set for Wednesday. And this was last week, on Thursday or Friday. I set the appointment for Wednesday this week that just passed.
Okay, right.
Saturday, we did the show. We had a great time. After the show, sometime Saturday or early Sunday, I think it was late Saturday, I got a invitation to speak somewhere or be a MC somewhere.
Yeah, for an event.
And the first thought is always, woo, somebody likes me, which means, this is a hell yes.
Yeah.
But there was another part of me going, this feels great. Like that ego side. But then there was this other side going, and then I started trying to, we also call it painting a red flag green. Like if it's not a hell yes,
Right.
you try to ignore the warnings.
Start kind of rationalizing our way into it.
Go, no, this will be good. Why not? Well, I told Ed about it, and Ed reminded me, well, just the fact that we're having this conversation of whether or not this is the right thing makes it obvious what the answer is.
Right.
So I got back to that person. I texted them, sorry, I'm not going to be able to do it this Sunday. It was for the Sunday, which is tomorrow. And it was at the same time that I'm going to be speaking at Ventura. So just keep that in your little file folder as we go through this story. So now Wednesday, I take my car to the dealer, and I bless the whole thing because, it can be a little intimidating going to the dealer. And during this interim between last Thursday and Wednesday, there was a salesperson there who got in touch with me who had heard I'd been thinking about looking into getting a different car. So she was going to meet me the day I was going to be there for service. So that puts a lot of emotion on me, and brings up a lot of emotion. It's not particularly positive because now I want to talk to a salesperson and this and that.
Right. So that's another whole layer to
a whole other layer. But you know what? I've been using that affirmation. I stand tall, hold my head up high because I'm a representative of God. I'm God's representative. And I started throwing, no, this is going to be effortless ease. And I felt really good walking in there. I explained to the service rep what was going on. She was very dismissive, which felt a little like, what? Like, this isn't going as planned. And I've been praying, what's up here? But then I remembered Ed. Ed has been sharing. I'm not going to let this piece of paper, this notice, this email, this whatever this person shares with me affect my emotional state. So we got to use this stuff. I mean, we got to apply it to our mind in these situations. So I used it, and I didn't feel myself sinking with it. I just went, okay, all right, she's going to check them out anyway. Boom. In the interim, the salesperson came in, spotted me, and I wasn't sure it was her. We started talking. She saw on my hat, I had on a different hat than the one I have on. I have an embroidered dog with one of those cones they wear when they're not doing well.
Right.
When they're in recovery. And she says, oh, do you work in rescue or something? And I said, no, I just drew this. But my wife is a photographer for rescue animals and the Humane Society and whatnot. She said, really? Well, that's what I do too. And she started talking about things she is doing now that Lori had done in the past. So I went, holy cow. It turns out we didn't know. I did not know at that time she was the salesperson. And she didn't know at that time I was Darrell Fazaro, who she was going to meet. So wow. I was just like, holy cow. She goes, wait a minute. We figure out who each other were. We get to the subject of the car. She agrees it's not a good idea for me to switch the cars right now because what I'm in right now is a better deal financially for me.
That alone is a miracle.
So that now things are getting better, right? Well, so turns out I talked to her as I'm talking to her. She's so excited about doing these animal photos and that taking off and her really loving it. And she's naming things she's doing. I go, well, what are you doing here? And she goes, funny you should ask. Today's my last day. I only came in because I had the commitment to see you. I said, oh my God.
Wow.
And she started saying, yeah, as soon as I said, I'm going to leave this place and do what I really love, I just felt so free, so enthusiastic. And I said, that's how you know it's the right decision. She goes, I know. So she left there saying, I'm going to go get my wife's book, My Old Dog, at Barnes & Noble. I connected her with Lori's information, and I'm on fire now. Well, now I get a video from the service department, and the service department lets me know the brakes look okay. They can't replicate the problem. And although I'm a little disappointed, I go, okay, well, nothing happens by mistake. And he goes, however, you have 2 nails in one tire.
Oh my gosh.
One of them's leaking slowly, one's not leaking at all. I recommend you take it to a car shop and get it, a tire place, and get it patched or repaired. Well, then the sales representative gets back to me and says, hey, you got 2 nails. We have a tire here if you want to buy it for $250. And you know what I said? Let's do it. Let's just get the tire because now I don't have to worry about going from here to there. And what I just said, fine, let's do it. As soon as I say yes to repairing the tire, I get a text from Unity of Ventura.
Wow.
Saying, would you be able to speak this Sunday? The minister who was planned got sick. And you know what? I just said yes, with no idea what I was going to talk about, no idea about anything, not even having connected any of these dots yet. I just knew that's the yes. So I just went, yes. And as soon as I did that, all of a sudden, in my mind, I went, holy cow. Starting from last week, if I didn't follow through with the hunch about the brakes and it turned out to be the tire, I would have been unknowingly driving around with 2 nails and possibly all the way up to Ventura or Santa or somewhere else if I had said yes or heard about the Ventura thing later.
Yeah.
So I was like, holy cow. And when you get intuition, and Florence Scovel Shinn says this, never argue with a hunch, because you may be going in for one thing, but it's because God has you there for something else. You can't see that what that hunch is clearly yet. But it was to get that tire repaired. And if I said yes to that first thing that wasn't really a hell yes, I wouldn't been able to speak somewhere where it felt like a hell yes. And in either case, I would have been driving, if the car didn't get the tire fixed on that Wednesday, I would have been driving. And just so you know, the distance from where Ed and I live to Santa Barbara or Ventura, it's an hour and a half of driving time. So I would have been far away from home on a Sunday. And if I had my tire damaged, plus you're doing 70 miles plus on a freeway with 2 nails in your tire. I mean, this stuff is so incredible to see how things work out when we could just, not argue with our hunches. I mean, this is a valuable lesson to me. Say no when we mean no, yes when we mean yes. And then connecting the dots afterwards to go, wow. Because what this does is it gives Ed and I and anyone else who does this the confidence to be less aggravated when things come up or a hunch comes up that feels like it's something out of your way or a disruption to your day. You start to go, wait a minute. Although this doesn't seem good, there is good in it.
Yes.
I don't know what it is yet, but it's there. And that attitude is transformative. That attitude alone is trusting in God that opens that door, because it turns something that seems like a problem into a possibility for more good.
Yes. Yeah. It's opening the door for new ideas to flow through. It prevents me from trying to wrangle with outside conditions and control those conditions, because now we're trusting in this superpower that's happening inside of us. And this idea of like staying open to new ideas, like your ability to stay open to new ideas and not go with the first thing that fear throws at you. That's what I was thinking about. Like, again, taking everything you're saying to the inside of myself, of how I've been working lately, is in the past, like when the rubber hit the road, no pun intended, since you just told that story, but if this voice of fear would start to assert itself within me, I would just go along with it. But now it's like being willing to say no to that. There's got to be another solution.
Yeah.
Because God doesn't work that way. God works with inspiration. And, I've been using the Raymond Charles Barker from Power of Decision affirmation, which is, I am infinite intelligence, acting intelligently. I always make the right decision. And the right decision means trusting in the higher power, in God, and the inspiration. And it takes, he calls it in this chapter, creative thinking, because we're getting creative instead of just going along with this flow and just accepting even what comes to us from the outside and what comes to us from the inside. We start to think creatively. He says creative thinking gives a zest to living. And you are a creative thinker when you decide to be one. The feeling that it is great to be alive is a spiritual necessity. It lessens the strains and tensions of routine functioning. It quickens new ideas and consciousness and alerts the mind to the fascinations that are available to us. It allows no morbidity, no boredom, and no lazy thinking. It prevents us from drifting in the past. It causes us to be today people expecting great things in our tomorrow. And that's what's been going on. Like I about a week ago, I was flying really high. I was using a lot of new thinking, always affirming that I am infinite intelligence. And I've been having these amazing experiences at work. I've been ending the day more energized, which is amazing for what I do for a living. And I was feeling so good. And then all of a sudden, it felt like I fell kind of into like a hole because all of the old thinking started to kind of reassert itself. Because, I think our minds, we program our subconscious mind like a computer, and it just kind of goes along and along and along. So I discovered like some new truth, and I start applying it. And for a while, I'm flying high, but then that old tape starts. I notice, it's playing because it hasn't run out yet. It's still there, and at first it feels like, holy smokes, have I fallen into hell? Where am I? What's going on? But what I realized I'm just now coming face to face with what used to be my normal way of thinking. And now it is in a healthy way. It is untenable. It's unbearable. It doesn't feel good. So then I have to become creative, and I have to trust, like, even though my inner being, like I'm driving to work, I'm getting texts from my principal saying, well, we're out 4 assistants for your, that work with my students, right? And these, and then she's like, I want the case carriers to figure this out. And I'm thinking, okay, you're telling me that there are 4 positions missing, and you're asking me because you're probably too busy, like stressed and busy. I'll just push it over there. But I said, this isn't a good enough. I'm going to wait. Yeah. By the time I get to school, the situation will change, because part of me wanted to react, oh my God, how dare they? Don't they know blah, 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 blah. And like, I said, no, I'm not going to do that either, because that's not a reflection of me being infinite intelligence. And so I just blessed it. By the time I got to school, there was a subtle change. Turned out we had 1 more person for half a day, another person. And I just stepped through the day, 1 step at a time. This does not affect my emotional well-being. I refuse to let it. But I really had to step out boldly 1 step at a time, because there's another part of me that was going, no, this is blah, blah, blah. I was just like, nope, that's not who I am. I'm not going to identify like that. I'm just going to keep taking. By the end of the day, everyone fell into place in the most perfect ways at the perfect time. And because I hadn't struggled or stressed over any of it, like I said before, I felt refreshed. I felt good. It's like Emmett Fox said, I let the engine take the train. I didn't try to carry the train myself. Yeah. I was there to receive the good as it came and then distribute the good. Because that's what I think Nancy Norman talked about on her Infinite Prosperity class about. We are distributors of God's infinite good as well. We receive it, we're inspired by it, and we distribute it to others. And to recognize that is changing my life. To really recognize, like, I also am here to distribute this good. Like, I am worthy of being that distributor of God's good. It changes everything, because that's like you were saying, it's a different role than trying to show up and wrangle things and force things. But if I'm just an ambassador of God's love, or if I'm just a representative of God, really, the more doubt that's around me, the more my mind starts going, I can't wait to see how this turns out, because in so doing, it's going to bless everyone involved.
Yeah. Well, it's like throughout that whole process, I had to keep saying no to heavy, negative, fearful thoughts.
Yes.
Because believe it or not, when the mechanic said, oh, you could take this to get patched, part of me, half my brain went, okay, get patched. There's a place right by my house. Cost $65 per patch. That's 2 patches, blah, blah, blah. And then when the option came, a new tire for $250, now I'm going, the cheap, because you could feel the fear thinking. The fear thinking is, well, wait a minute, I could drive home, get the patch. And I'm going, wait a minute, Darrell, do you really want to now take your car from here? He marked the tire, which was nice, so I could take it right to the shop. But do you really want to go to another place, have them look at it, possibly say, well, you already have 2 patches too close. This might not be a good idea. You're going to have to buy a tire. Or just, it's too, what's your, Mike Dugan used to say with things like this, what's your peace of mind worth? Is it worth more than $250? Yes. And after I said yes to that, here from the Unity of Ventura, within the next day, I received the cost for the tire plus an additional $140. So, you know, in the old way of thinking was, oh, great. The money I just earned went right to my tire.
Right.
That is so sick. I mean, that's my sick way of thinking. But the real truth is, and it's not even true. The truth is, you got to think we're not spending, we're circulating.
Yes.
And it's just like anything else in the universe. It's got to keep flowing. The word affluence, everyone wants to be affluent. I want to be affluent. He's affluent.
Right.
She's affluent. Ooh. It literally means to be in the flow,
Yeah.
to not be congested. Everyone I know who hangs on to their money, they end up making foolish decisions with their money.
Yeah.
That ends up costing them more money than they ought to, or they end up needing it for some horrible incident, unfortunately. But the people who always just let it flow, they always seem a lot happier, a lot less stressed, a lot less controlling, and they always have more than enough to do what they want to do when they want to do it. I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I want to be affluent.
Right. That's why we got a daily word from Kirk Chelson in Germany. He's been on the show before. He said, enjoy, great piece from Frank Whitney, founder of Daily Word. They don't write them like they used to, but then again, you guys do with your show. So thank you, Kirk. And it was Martha Smock says, it's a little piece in the beginning, and it's called Freedom of Choice.
What year is that again?
This is from, what year is it?
It says in the front, too.
Oh, okay, cool. It is from 1984, July.
Okay.
She says, Charles Fillmore says, we can be what we determine to be. We can be masters or we can be serfs. It rests with us whether we shall fill the high places in life or the low.
You're a serf.
I'm a surfer, let's be clear. Whether we, that's just something I do. Whether we shall serve or be served, led or be led, or be sickly or healthy. This is the crux of the Unity teachings, that we do have a choice.
Yes.
This is what Darrell demonstrated, and this is what we've been demonstrating here, is that we not only have a choice, but we have the God-given power to change our thinking, to change our lives through the freedom of choice. Unity hears from people all the time who tell us that their whole way of life has been changed because of the new understanding that has come to them. They see themselves in a new light.
Yeah.
They feel their oneness with God. That's so important. Their oneness with God's presence and power. When we take the road of truth, when we choose to follow our inner guidance, that makes all the difference. And actually, a couple pages later, Frank Whitney says, this is a great little affirmative paragraph. I greet this day as giving me an opportunity to receive new blessings. That's what we need. When we feel like our back is up against the wall, God has not stopped providing for us. It's just our rational mind has moved into, as Darrell's been saying, unfamiliar territory. So we just need to open up to new ideas. The ideas are there, the substance is there, the money's there, everything's there, but our old familiar thinking just can't see it anymore, so we have to open up. So he says, today I enter a new world, and I've been using this, like, whatever those crappy thoughts and feelings that have been coming up for me lately, I say, that's fine, I'm letting that go. I'm opening up to a new world, one filled with new ideas, new ideals, new opportunities, new visions. I see the world as freed from the limitations that I have placed upon it in the past. I no longer think of it as my master or of myself as bound by worldly things. I rise in the glory of my spiritual power and proclaim my world as subject only to the will and the work of the Christ within me. I begin life anew.
Since we got to bring our guest on soon, that just inspired a new 3 breaths.
All right, let's do it.
You know what? You want me to just do it first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Take a deep breath. God renews my mind and improves my circumstances.
God renews my mind and improves my circumstances.
God renews my mind
and improves my circumstances. Oh, can we thank Lois Conklin while we're here?
Yeah.
She sent us an amazing hand-painted
Postcard.
Thank you. And you can see it if you're on Facebook. We've been streaming the show live. By the way, if you look at our Facebook page, not Facebook, YouTube. If you look at our YouTube page, Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed, and if you can't find the show, there's a tab called Live. And that's where all of our shows are going to end up, because you can also watch them live at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Saturdays. She says, may every sunrise hold more promise, every sunset hold more peace. May every day bring more blessings, and may joy never cease. Sending love and prosperity, blessings to all, Lois Conklin. Well, thank you, Lois. And then we got this from Kirky, and it's a quote from it's from a book that has Raymond Charles Barker and Ernest Holmes. I think it's a daily reader.
Yep.
I am not led into the temptation to believe that a power opposes me. I know that my mind alone is power, and all of mind is for me. I decide whether my world shall be heaven or hell. My thinking and my feeling alone determines my experience. Therefore, never again will I be tempted to blame outer circumstances and other people for my own wrong thinking.
Let's think anew.
Yeah, Krista McAvina said, remembering I had a Funniest Thing episode to listen to is like remembering I have ice cream in the freezer. Every time I see Nancy and you guys either on Zoom or the podcast, I'm reminded that everything is connected and works out for the good. Who knew 30-something baby Krista sitting in the rattan chairs of Unity of Delray Beach would be connected to this ever-expanding, wonderful web of amazing people like you guys. She said, can't wait to see what's next. If you want to send us anything, Funniest Thing, P.O. Box 1312, Culver City, California, 90232. If you want to support the show, you could do that through patreon.com/funniest thing. It's patreon.com is Patreon. And those who are on there already know that we do a 4 p.m. Prosperity Zoom every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, and we email you the link for that.
From right here in Middle School Studios. One other piece of surprise mail.
Yeah.
We have another listener I didn't know about until just this week, named Lynn Beach in Vermont, because she signed up for the intuitive method workshop I'm doing coming in June. And if you're interested in taking or finding out more about what is the intuitive method workshop they're talking about, just go to darrellanded.com, and it's right there on our homepage. So Thank you, Lynn. We're looking forward to it. And it's great to discover listeners that we never really knew were listening.
Yes.
It's like meeting a friend we just haven't met yet.
Right. It's amazing. Shout out to Kathy Lepoff, who is watching through Kathleen Lepoff, right? Or is it you, Kathy?
I call her Kathy.
Yeah. She says, hi, Darrell and Ed. She's been watching on the live stream.
Wow.
So thank you for that. Coming up next, today's guest, Unity Minister, the sensational Sandra Campbell, opens us up to accepting new and improved experiences with today's reading, Open Door, and a whole lot more. So thank you for listening and watching Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed, live from Culver City, the heart of Screenland.
And now, Sandra, you could turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Yes.
There she is.
Wow. Fantastic.
All right. Ed's just going to bring us back, and then we're going to...
Yeah, the Facebook, the YouTube people can see us, but Jeff Comfort, we got to thank Jeff Comfort, man.
We'll do that right after you bring us back.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready to roll over there at the temple?
We're ready.
Great. All right, welcome back to Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed. Today's show is called Opening New Doors with Sandra, the Reverend Sandra Campbell, all the way from the Temple on the Plaza, Unity Temple on the Plaza. It's in Missouri, right? Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City,
Missouri.
Kansas? Where are you at?
Missouri.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And speaking of Kansas City, on the other side of the state line.
Oh, yeah, we got to thank our chief engineer who helps out with all the audio. He saved the show many times.
Yeah, his name's Jeff Comfort.
Each week.
He takes us
Right into the comfort zone. Yes. All right. How are you today, Reverend?
Doing great. Doing wonderful. How are you? I've been enjoying listening to the show and watching you guys. You're funny, but you're truthful.
Well, thank you. That's the best compliment.
Yes.
Well, we're excited to hear what thoughts came up for you while you were listening to the first half.
Oh, wow. Lots of thoughts. Isaiah 43:19 was one of the ones that came up for me. Jeremiah 29:11, especially when you talked about your tires and your hunch that you followed, and let your yes be yes and your no be no, all scriptural. So I thought about in Jeremiah, for I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And that just came loud and clear as you were speaking. You knew where you were supposed to be, what you were supposed to do, and you followed that inner guidance. Sometimes we second guess ourselves when we know what we should be doing, but then all these other ideas keep coming up and we get off track a little bit. So I appreciate you sharing about staying on the path, keeping your focus, knowing what is yours to do and what is not yours to do. I struggle with that sometimes. And I thought about something my mother used to say all the time. When I would say something that I can't do, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, she'd say, old man can't die before you were born. So I was never allowed to say what I could not do. I was always told to try. If it's worth the effort, give it a try. And at least I'll know that I did try. So I'm reminded of the Queen in Alice in Wonderland. Lewis Carroll was brilliant. And most children's stories are metaphysical. So when you really dissect that story, you get adult messages and adult teachings. And he was brilliant. And so the Queen, Alice says, I just can't do impossible things. Everything's impossible, so to speak. And the Queen says, well, I venture you haven't had much practice, because I can think of I believe at least 6 impossible things before breakfast. And I think that's another clue to how to rise above your circumstances and get beyond what you think is impossible. You reminded me of my own practice. Every day I start my practice with reading the daily word or listening to the daily word on the app b.unity.org. And then I go right into a 10-minute meditation. Usually I do Tamara Levitt, the Daily Calm. And I found that to be really, really good. And so that kickstarts my day. And sometime during the day when I feel a little lag, I might go to the next one in her repertoire, which would be Jay Shetty, the Daily J, or Jeff Warren, the Daily Trip. So sometimes just settling down and letting go of all the busyness can help you to recenter and know when to say yes and when to say no. So I really like that lesson. I can't wait. I hope that Unity of Ventura records their service, because you captured me with your title, and I really want to watch it, except that at noon my time, which will be 10 o'clock your time, I'll be involved in something else. But I thought, wow, how catchy, to let the genie out of the bottle, because we all have that hidden genie. Some of us don't realize that we've got this talent within. And in this month, we're studying in the 12 powers, the 12 faculties. We're studying the power of imagination, which I'm sure Darrell and Ed had an imagination before this got started, right? You had it in your mind. Everything starts in the mind first. And so this power of imagination located in the third eye, just above and between the eyebrows. And the color vibration I'm wearing is light blue. So I usually like to wear my power so I can remind myself of the power for the month. We are only limited by our imaginations. If our imagination is not vivid, then we have a smaller bubble that we're looking at, a smaller dream catcher, so to speak. But when we use that power of imagination, there is no limit to what we can do. And that's why this whole episode, this podcast that you do, is so powerful, because you use the power of your imagination That's how you did it. That's how you continue to do it. I love that. I can see your imagination at work. I can feel it.
Well, thank you. You reminded me too, when I was in the service, a Marine gunny sergeant became like a mentor for me for a period of time. And I actually made the mistake of saying, I can't do that. And it was about something positive. He was trying to help me move out of. Ed and I don't even use the word comfort zone anymore because it's not really comfortable. So we use the word stagnant. We're a stagnant zone or a familiar zone. I'm afraid to move out of what's familiar. It makes more sense. But so it wasn't something like he was telling me to do more push-ups or sit-ups. I don't want the audience to think it was something as ordinary as that. Because that you just do. When you're in the military, they say, well, pick that up and take it over. You just do it. But it was something which for most people, I believe, is more difficult than these physical things. And it's overcoming these limits in our thinking. And it was one of those situations where something was brought up. I can't even remember what the limit was, but I remember the advice. And once you get a good piece of advice that changes you in a good way, you can't shake it. And the thing was, I said, I can't do that. And he goes, no, that's not true. I go, what do you mean? And he said, from now on, anytime you get the urge to say I can't, you're going to say I won't. How does that feel? And that does not feel good. But that's the truth. It's not I can't.
Wow.
It's I won't.
That's great.
And man, once you get one of these lessons in your head, it's like when I catch myself going, I can't. I see Mike Urton, Master Gunny Sergeant Mike Urton going, no, it's not that you can't, but you won't. But we don't want to admit that we won't grow up. Because that's what really it's saying. I'm refusing to grow up, I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. But man, it was a good one. It was similar to like what your mom said to you that helped. When you get the lesson and you get the truth, and it's sometimes I'll hear things a million times and then I'll hear it and it clicks in my brain. I go, oh man, this is a game changer, like you were saying earlier. And then other times you get it and it's like the perfect knockout punch. And that was one of them. He says, no, it's not that you can't, it's that you won't. And man, that's a tough one for a guy to swallow, let me tell you. But it was a great propellant for my future.
Yeah, I agree. And my mother had a lot of isms. My mother was 101 when she made her transition 2 years ago, and in great health. Mentally, she didn't have dementia or Alzheimer's. But she would say to me, nothing beats a failure but a try. And I would think, well, what if I try over and over again and I still fail? She said, it's not a failure if you try. So I think that's the other thing is sometimes we get so caught up in wanting to win or wanting to be the best or wanting to be perfect that we don't even acknowledge the times that we tried.
Yes.
And it's sort of like your gunny sergeant was saying to you is that if you won't do something, that's totally different than I can. Won't mean I'm not going to even try it. I'm not going to even test myself. I'm not going to even push myself because I already have it made up in my mind that I'm going to not be able to do it. And so I love that. Won't is definitely, there's a poem about that somewhere, about will and won't. You might want to look that up.
Yeah, well, it also goes back to what you're saying. All these limits, even me at that time, at any time, all these limits are my imagination, my idea of what I can or cannot do. And it's very limited. And your mom and other people that walk in our life, like show up in our lives, like Mike did for me, they just are basically saying, this is all in your head, right? This limit is just in your head. You're telling yourself a lie right now. And we don't open new doors by staying in the same room. But that's what we're doing. Oh, that was another one he said. I'm going to say it. He goes, Fazaro, one time he got frustrated with me. And this was in I just want everyone to know this. I was in a military rehabilitation center, and this was in the early 80s, and they were teaching new thought. It was crazy. They haven't done this for many, 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 many decades now since, but I was just there at the right time, at the right place. And so he was getting frustrated with me probably not taking a good objective inventory of how my thinking was versus how it could be. Whatever the case may be, he just got frustrated and said, Fazaro, you know what the biggest room in your house is? And I went, the living room? He said, no, the room for improvement.
That's true.
But our imagination has to improve.
Yeah.
And when the studying of this stuff and practicing this stuff and being reminded of how mind comes first is so important because along with my mental congestion last week, I experienced these physical symptoms and my sinus stuff, and I really had to look what's going on here. And I'm always listening for the words that have like double meaning. So when I hear congestion, I'm like, okay, where's my thinking congested? I think I told you on the Patreon, I was talking about this, that when I really started turning the corner, I sat there in my chair where I meditate and read, and I said, what's going on? Well, everything in my head feels irritated. And then I realized I was feeling irritated by everyone, and I was letting this old voice be irritated by everyone, and that was being reflected in my mental state, my physical state. So I had to shift around my thinking. In order to do that, I had to let in new thoughts, and I had to go, what old crappy thoughts? Because those thoughts are piecing my world together in a way that looked like I was stuck.
Yes.
So I had to say, but I'm not stuck, because in God, this is principle. We are never stuck, and God does not stop growing, does not stop moving. There's no limit to what I could do. And so it's like, I was imagining, like that Jenga, that game Jenga, where it's like these blocks that are stacked and you have to I don't know. It's just puzzle that's put together. And sometimes, and I really think this is reflected even in the neural pathways in our brain, sometimes we put it together unconsciously or in ways that just create a traffic jam within our thinking and then within our outer expression of who we are. And so I've been really just going, if that's not working for me, I'm not going to just accept that bad feeling thought is just how it is for me. I need a new thought. And I'm not resting until I get that new thought, and I know it's going to happen. This is what I like about Raymond Charles Barker, who was originally a Unity minister and then became Science of Mind, is that he is reminding me that I have to declare it, not just hope it happens. I am claiming what I know about God to be true with my own voice, that I know these thoughts of stagnation cannot be true of the mind of God, because that does not happen in the mind of God. So I am now opening myself up, and I can't wait to see what arrives to prove those old thoughts wrong, because those old thoughts, even though they're happening in my own brain, are not me. They don't even reflect who I am in any way, shape, or form. And that is so liberating. And that's because even for this show, I'm listening right now, because I'm like, I'm reclaiming my wholeness in certain areas. So I'm listening to Reverend Campbell. I'm listening to Reverend Fazaro right here. And that's why we love doing this show, because my imagination is being healed in this. I'm activating my own imagination, just like any listener or viewer might be doing in this moment.
Well, you just reminded me the significance of reminding myself, wait a minute, these thoughts are not me. Yeah. I mean, there was one time in my life, Sandra, before I discovered Unity and before, Mike Gert and any of this in 1986 is when all this happened, where I didn't know my thoughts weren't me. Mm-hmm. It was unbearable. Yes. I did not know that my thoughts were just thoughts that I could choose and I could direct. I could change. I thought every thought I thought was true. And I'm not talking about good thoughts. I'm talking about it would be one thing if I thought the good thoughts were true, but it just seemed in my case, the negative I believed to be 100% true. Mm-hmm. And anything positive that I thought, or even kind, loving encouragement from people from the outside would be dismissed as not having any truth to it. And man, I am so grateful. My whole perspective has been flipped to see the light that, wait a minute, these thoughts are not me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that you said earlier, and you gave me a different perspective too, when you use the definition of affluent, to be with the flow, not congested. And I think about, we think of affluence as money or power of some way, but the affluence of thought, you know, having only those, or entertaining only those thoughts that bring to you that what the things that you desire. You know, we say in unity, thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. And I was 21 years old when I was introduced to this new way of thinking. It was a little bit difficult for me to grasp at first, but I was hungry for it.
Me
And
too.
so, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, an old Chinese
Yep.
proverb. And that's very true. Not everybody's ready for it at the same time. But when we are ready for it, boy, is it a mind-blowing experience to know that we have that kind of control
Yeah.
based on the way we choose to think. You know, Unity's third principle is that we create our experiences, not our circumstances, our experiences by what we choose to think, what we feel, and what we believe. We have so much power that we don't
Mhm.
exercise, or we exercise it in the wrong way because we allow our thoughts to take us down a rabbit hole of negativity instead of reining them in. And I love that idea of affluent, being not being congested. Um, One of the things I did a long time ago is I wrote this one woman show for a group of school children in Kansas City. I worked in the aviation field. And my story is called Follow Your Dreams, the Bessie Coleman story. So I reenact the life of the first Black female licensed airplane pilot. And it took off. It's been all over in PBS and so forth. But the reason I wrote the play is I was told these group of children, seventh and eighth graders, many of them didn't seem to have a lot of hope. Their situations at home were not the best. Principal wanted somebody to come out who could really inspire them. And I chose to go out there, and I had stood in for Bessie Coleman's posthumous induction into the Women in Aviation International Hall of Fame the year before. And I had this idea, but I'd never done anything with it. Well, I remember I wrote the play. I had about 40 pages of notes. Today I perform it live without notes, but that was 1996. And I remember a family member said, I was in my 40s, and a family member said, aren't you a little old to be starting something like this? And I thought, wow, what a narrow way of thinking. We're never too old for our imaginations to catapult us into even greater things, because that's what we're here to be, you know. And that Isaiah, I think is Isaiah 43:19, you know, see, I'm doing a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Do you not perceive it? Now
Right.
it springs forth. You got to grab a hold. So like you did with that hunch, when you get that hunch, get that deep gut feeling, this is something new, something different. There are going to be naysayers. There are going to be people who don't understand it. That's not your dream. You know, your dream is to follow that hunch and know that God is going to take you somewhere that you never dreamed of before. And that is one example of this idea of having using your imagination and believing in your power of imagination and following through on that hunch. And you never know where that's going to lead.
Yeah.
The story you told in the beginning, I mean, that's just a powerful example of how when you follow the guidance from within, you know, a spirit speaking to you,
Yeah.
follow that guidance, you can't even imagine what that is going to lead to
Yes.
and who that's going to lead to, and to you
Yes.
and you to them. So thank you for that lesson today.
Right.
Well, all this is great because there's so many days I catch myself thinking, I'm 62 now. What's the point? And I go, Darrell, no, you're not 62. You're still you. I'm still the eternal me that was me at 22 and
Yes.
42.
Exactly.
Like that's the real me. That thought that what are you even thinking about starting something new now for? You're 62. That thought is not me.
Yeah.
The real me is the one that feels, and I could feel it when you were talking about the feeling like when I'm going to do this performance, it's like that's the eternal us.
Yeah.
And anytime that's there, I have no cares in the world.
Yeah.
you know, and I have no cares at all.
Yeah.
Ed,
Well,
Ed,
go ahead.
I just want to say this because you were saying something about a new thought, and I made
Yeah.
this. Oh, I think this is a different book.
Well, look for it, because I was just
Go
going to say,
ahead.
when I stumbled into singing in college in front of a band, just by writing, because I had to write. I had all this craziness in my brain. I started writing. My college roommate was a guitar player. He found a poem. He put chords and said, "You should do this," and so I started getting up there. And I've just been thinking about this lately again, because now I'm finally finding like a healthy way back into connecting with music in a way that feels right for me. Because I bumped up against like the model of what I saw. Like I didn't really want to go down that road of being in bars or trying to. That's just not what I ended up teaching for the last 27 years, special education, and something I never thought, but has been amazing for me, has healed me in so many ways, and I've been a blessing to other people. But now, like a lot of it with Darrell's help as an artist, just like how to look at like what Eric Butterworth said, being blessed by the act of creativity.
Yeah.
Even before we're ever blessed for it, we're blessed by it. And I just remember when I started performing, I used to look around. I go, I don't know how anyone lives without doing this, because I would get up on stage, blast all this lyrics, and say what I wanted to say, and I had not a care in the world afterwards. And I was thinking about this, Reverend, when you said about your one-woman play. I'm just imagining how great that feels to let the spirit of Bessie Smith, how much you must learn about yourself and what's possible.
I don't even feel, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir now. I don't even feel my feet touching the floor.
Yes, I know
I really
that.
don't. I have a total out-of-body experience when I'm Bessie Coleman. I'm not Sandra anymore. And I think this is the one thing I think people should understand. Everybody has a passion.
Yeah.
If you know what your passion is, that's your ministry. James Dillard Freeman, the poet emeritus of Unity, wrote a poem, "Every man is a minister." And I'll paraphrase that: every person is a minister.
Yeah.
You don't need to have an ordination. You don't need to have a degree. You don't need to go to ministerial school. You have a passion. That is your ministry.
Yeah.
I'm a ministerial school where I'm the executive director, where I graduated from. That's what I talk about. Let's look at everybody's passion. Stop trying to put square pegs in round holes. Everybody doesn't want to stand on a platform and speak, but some people, their passion is music, and that's a ministry in itself. Their passion is technology. That's a ministry. The passion is working with children, special ed. That's a ministry. So just remember, everything we do is a ministry. And when we show up in that ministry, other people can't help but to be blessed.
Yeah. It's funny. One thing is I read your bio, which on the Unity Urban Ministerial School website, and I've been telling our listeners to go to uums.org, the radio tab. You can listen to Darrell Ed there and a lot of other great ministers as well. But I was telling Darrell, I kind of started to think like, oh my God, the Reverend Sandra Campbell's done so much stuff. Like,
what's the use?
What are we doing? Like, I don't know. My mind started kind of working against me. But, and Darrell and I, we call it like research, because we met you and we were just, wow, when we saw you at the Fillmore Bible study. This is how we usually invite guests on, not by their bio, but like, do they live it? And how does it feel when it comes out of their mouth? And we felt that in you. But then the other part of me looked at the bio was like, got intimidated, like, oh no, what have we done?
Because when we read people's bios, then we forget, wait a minute. We forget the real person we actually met, and we're like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, yeah. So, what I wanted to say to our listeners and our viewers, based on what you just said, is don't worry about anyone else's bio.
Yeah.
By living this way, God will blow the doors off of everything that we think is possible, and we will write our own bio. And chances are our bio is already better than we realize it is when we look at ourselves through the lens of comparison. And because for a while, I'm been looking at possibly doing something new, or the possibility, not just possibly, but of what do I want to do next kind of thing. But the first phase God had me do this year was value what I've already been doing, because I was feeling so run over by self-doubt and comparison. But since then, I realized I run a full service metaphysical new thought ministry in a public school.
Yeah.
And I just don't call it that. But while I'm doing that, I'm also like the only one on my team in my department that is meeting the marks on all my paperwork is done on time. I just got a glowing, like the stuff
Yes.
that in the past, oh, that doesn't matter to me, but I get that done because the metaphor came up for me last night. One part of me is the prodigal son story. There's a part of me that stays at home and does the work, gets the paperwork done when it needs to get done, sweeps the floor, but it has to be balanced out by the other part of me that needs to go out and do new things and have fun, because otherwise I become the bitter brother at home going, why is he out all having all that fun? I start to resent people who aren't, but if I, the other way, if I just go run around and I don't ever come home and do that part, that doesn't feel good either. I burn out. So all that's to say, we love you and appreciate you coming on the show. And I'm so glad we didn't let my fear by doing that research get in the way.
Ed said,
totally unfounded, because I was afraid to come on the show. I'm like, I don't know. I don't do radio. I don't do podcasts. I don't show up that good. I'm not that smart. I'm not, I had all those things too.
yeah.
So I think we all do.
That's the best news. That's music to our ears.
It really
and I know
is.
that's music to all our listeners' ears, because everyone right now is saying the two most healing words in the English language. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And that's what's great about these teachings, the way Unity laid them out there, the way most all the New Thought ministers, with the exception of very few, it was a very open, it turned me on to the fact that I never could see before, that Jesus was a spiritual teacher, and these teachings are practical for everyday living right now in my life. And if I apply them, I am going to live experiencing good health, happiness, love, success, and prosperity. And that was the mind blower. And then to discover also that none of the people the teachers that were teaching me, one of them was David McClure. Reverend David McClure was the first Unity minister I ever heard, because I was stationed in Hawaii at the time. But all these other people I was meeting, like Mike Urton and Mike Dugan, another big influence in my life, introducing me to this way of living, which is, a lot of people call it first century Christianity, because this was what the first century of Christians were actually applying these principles and living this way. And it wasn't all dogma yet that the churches started bringing into the equation that pulled us further away. Actually, the antithesis of everything Jesus taught started to become what the church was delivering. But the thing is, they all were freely letting me see that they were human, and they weren't talking at me from a hill. They were talking to me like you. They were giving examples from their life of how, I could have did this, but I should have did that. And I did this, and then this worked out. And this happened, and it wasn't particularly what I loved, but you know what? I wonder what wonderful things going to come of this. And I was going, I want to learn how to do that. I will do anything to learn how to live like that, because no matter if things were going up or down or frustrations, or they were consistently joyful and happy, and they always seemed to have more than enough to do what they wanted to do or need to do or cover their expenses. And I was like, man, I want that. And that's what this stuff offers everyone.
Yes.
Yep. I applied this with my wife's shop that she's been managing and selling her stuff from, was closing like tomorrow. And, I'm doing the budget in my brain or whatever. My rational mind's getting scared. But I just stayed with this. I just kept affirming that I do my Catherine Ponder.
Yeah.
Prosperity. After I bless my finances, and I do this Reverend Ike thing, like, I use my hands, even that which I consciously or unconsciously was rejecting in the past, I now allow it in. We are rich. I'm circulating, and I do it every day. So really now this practice is overriding outside circumstances. So like 2 weeks ago, they were going to do the closing sale, and my wife was like, you know how it is, you get to she's like, I don't even know if I want to do this. What's it? And I just tell, lovingly listen and just say, well, just go in there. And she made like 3 months of
Income.
income in 2 weekends.
Yeah.
And so many other things, like my account while this is closing has swelled to let me know, don't worry, man. And it's also the spirit in my ear saying, and I've been saying this to my wife and for my own hearing, is that there's no time in God. It's not like, oh, you're going to have to go through a long suffering time. No, one door closes, another door opens. And but we just have to be willing to let the new ideas in and be like a child, enthusiastic, be enthusiastic and be ready, willing, joyously expectant of what good is going to come,
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually leads perfectly to the reading. Do you have that reading that we sent you?
I do.
This is by Joyce Kramer, right? I don't know if we...
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
The reading is Open Door by Reverend Joyce Kramer. The door to my good is always open. Thank you, God. Think of a door. See it in your mind's eye. Is it open or shut? If it is shut, open it. Doors are significant symbols. The open door represents an open state of mind, a willingness to learn and experience new things. It also symbolizes your ability to pass into expanded good. Scripture tells us, behold, I have set before you a door opened, which no one can shut. The door to God's kingdom of abundant good is always open. Therefore, if there is anything in your life that has seemed to be a closed door, affirm, there are no closed doors in my mind or in my life. The door to good is always open. There are no closed doors to health or supply. There are no closed doors to happy human relations. There are no closed doors to forgiveness. Think about the large open door that God's love and goodness represent. Think of yourself as entering that open door into an abundant way of life. Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one can shut. From the book of Revelation, the 3rd chapter.
Oh, you know what the idea was that you reminded me of, Ed?
Yeah.
Well, I wrote down a note to myself a while back that I didn't realize I wrote until I found this piece of paper.
Okay.
I don't even know what year I wrote this to myself. I go, what is success? Success, this is a note for me, but feel free to use this for yourself. Success is any refreshing new idea that renews my thinking and raises my previously dead attitude. It's true.
That's so true. That is 100% accurate. Yeah.
I'm going to use that one. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Well, Reverend Sandra Campbell, how do
people find
you? Can they watch your talks or from the temple over there?
Yes, they can go to unitytemple.com, click on services and scroll down, and they'll see, they'll probably see my face pop up or something I'm not the only one who speaks.
Yes.
I speak usually on the 4th Sundays, but I also speak at other churches around, and even Unity of Vancouver, British Columbia has me quite often on Zoom.
Oh, wow.
Father's Day, I'm actually speaking on Zoom at Unity of Davis, California.
Oh, wow.
I'm doing 2 services that Sunday, one at Unity Church of Overland Park, Kansas, in person, and then I'll get on Zoom and do the service for Unity of Davis. So unitytemple.com, might be one place.
Yes.
I'm working on a website so that my talks will be in one location.
Okay,
Reverend
great.
Richard Pacheco, who is our webmaster for Unity Urban School, also an alum of the Urban School. As you know, he's the director of our new UUMS Anointed Radio show. And so he is helping me with developing a website. So one of these days I'll have something where some people can go to one place. But, this is my passion is spreading the good news, helping people to find that truth within.
I am
We
so
feel
happy
it.
we met you.
We'll put the link for the Unity Temple in the episode online on
Yep.
YouTube and on the
Pod-
apps
yep.
for the podcast. Yeah, we want to thank you for your time and everything you're doing. We do have a little story here. You ready, Darrell?
Yeah, this is a Unity TMZ story. We can't confirm or deny whether this is true about you, but
So Reverend Sandra Campbell hired a new organist for the Unity Temple on the plaza. While the organist was very enthusiastic, their music left something to be desired. After several weeks of hoping things would get better, the day had come to let the organist go. The organist was shocked.
what happened? Why am I getting the axe?
Reverend Sandra smiled.
Well, you play the organ like it is a divine instrument. When you start playing, we anticipate God's glory. And when you stop playing, we know God's mercy.
Love it. Thank you for that.
I was on the phone with Jesus the other day, and you know what he started singing? He said, I'm not trying to run your life. I know you wanna do what's right. Give your love now to whoever you choose. How can you lose with the stuff you use? It's your thing. Do what you wanna do. I can't tell you who to sock it to.
It's your thing. All right, visit
Reverend Sandra Campbell, we love you.
Visit Darrell and Ed.
UnityTemple.com.
Visit DarrellandEd.com to find easy links to everything we do. And thanks for being a part of Funniest Thing with Darrell
It's
and Ed.
your thing. Do what you want to do. I can't tell you who to sock it to. Woo! All right, we did it.
You know that song they slipped in Reverend Ike's saying in there. You
Yeah.
can't lose with the stuff I.
Yeah. Do you know? You have his book?
Yep.
Yep. And do you get his recordings?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So his son sent the urban school a large supply of the books. So I've been sending them out to board members and staff and
Oh,
also,
wait.
Oh, we don't have that book yet.
You're talking about the biography
is it
book.
short? You don't have it?
No,
No.
we
Okay.
just
Well, I'll send you. What's your address?
it's fun. It's Funniest Thing,
Okay.
P.O. Box
Okay.
1312,
Uh-huh.
Culver City,
Okay.
California,
Okay.
90232.
Okay. Give me a couple of weeks, but you'll get it in the mail.
Thank
Have you
you.
Amazing.
ever heard of the Metaphysical Millionaires?
No.
Oh my God. Let me tell you, you got a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. So you talk about doors opening. Unity of Vancouver sought me out over a year ago. Their minister, Bob Trask, stepped away, or he's gone from there, and they don't have a minister. I don't know how I ended up how they contacted me. But years ago, when I was going through ministerial school, I put out when I would go through my progress interviews twice a year, they want to know, okay, how do you see yourself in ministry? I did not see myself. I worked full time for the Federal Aviation Administration. I was a manager. I don't like hiring people. I don't like firing people. I don't like labor relations. I don't like any of that stuff. And so I knew I didn't want to run a business. Church is a business. And you got to keep the finances up. You got to hire. I mean, it's a business. Well, I knew when I retired, I didn't want to do that exactly anymore. And so eventually I got the idea, and I think it was spirit, I want to be an international speaker. So I put that out in the universe, and the play brought me to a lot of that. I mean, I've been to Paris where Bessie Coleman had to go to get her pilot's license. And I've performed in Alaska, and I've performed all over, for the airline, all the airlines and other people. Even when I was still working for the FAA, they would send me places, or these people would send for me, and I would get paid bigger than what I ever expected, just doing what I loved. I wrote that play for a school. It turned into something more than I thought. So anyway, long story short, the people in Vancouver got in touch with me, one of the board members, and she wanted to know if I would speak on Zoom. Then they asked me, would I teach a 12 powers class? You guys are 2 hours behind me, and I'm not a night owl. So that meant at night I was teaching a class. Asked me, would I teach the metaphysical Bible class? which I teach on Sunday mornings. So did that. So I've become a regular for them. And this man by the name of R.J. Purcell always coordinates the technology. So when I was teaching the 12 Powers class, somebody said, oh, have you read Randy's book? And I go, Randy Purcell. Randy wrote a book. I get it in the mail. It's called The Metaphysical Millionaires.
Mm.
I'm at home, by the way, in my office.
I was wondering.
This is it.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Hey, let me tell you, he's so humble. He never would have told me if somebody hadn't mentioned this. In the beginning of the book, he talks about a company that he started with no money and no employees. He grew it to about 400 and he sold it to Rupert Murdoch.
Wow.
So unassuming. And it says a guide to enlightened manifestation.
Oh, we got to get a hold of that
R.J.
one.
Purcell. He talks about Steve Jobs. He talks about Ram Dass. It's a really, really good book. And he teaches a class on this at U of Vancouver. I want to get in his class.
That sounds
This
amazing.
Is how, you talk about how spirit brings
Yeah.
people or brings people to you.
Yeah.
He's the one they've had technology issues. So the last times I've had to record my talks, which is hard to do because I'm here in my office. I got to make sure everything's clean and straight out, hide all the papers. Then I got to try to make sure my lipstick isn't on the side of my face. My hair isn't standing up on top of my head or on fire. And, then I finally get to work on my talk. Then I got to make sure I'm looking at the camera. I don't know whether I'm looking at the director or not.
Yeah.
So many things, and they never are right. Then when Zoom gets to the people, the recording, then I get, well, we couldn't see you got to take off your glasses or do this or do that. And it's a fiasco. And he's the one, very patient. I never would have known, he's the one choreographing everything for me in Vancouver. And almost all of their musicians, these are members of their church, not guest speakers or anything.
Right.
Almost all of them are professional, like Ted Arnson. He's the one who was a coach for Jim Carrey, voice coach or something.
Oh, wow.
He plays and he composes music. He does, a lot of times he's the one doing the music on a Sunday. And they had somebody on there whose whole family, I forget what music group they are, but somebody that's famous. But these people they're there for the spiritual uplift like everybody else. And you wouldn't know those things because they're not going to tell you. But that was one of the things that it resonated when you talked about how when you listen to your hunch.
Yeah.
And so now I'm starting to get requests from everywhere. And sometimes I'm like, do I really want, like Father's Day doing 2 services? Do I really want to do this? But this is what I'm called to do. This is what I feel good doing. And I love it. I don't even feel like it's work to me.
Yes. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Get that book.
We will.
We're also going to reach out to you in the future to come back on the show if you'd be willing.
I would love to. Yeah.
We're so glad you've joined the Guardians of the Galaxy. All of our this world of misfit toys we live in, of people who have found their way to living this way and are blown away and excited. Just the way you ran and grabbed that book, I was like, she's one of us. I love it.
Oh, listen, I'll drive you crazy because my mind goes in all kinds of directions.
Oh, yeah. Well,
wait a minute, let me go get this. Oh, did I tell you that point? Oh, that's another thing. This is some things had changed in my life and in my church. And one of my I do the Wednesday evening service on Zoom called We Rise. And she sent this to me. It says, new doors open in all areas of my life. And I will send this to you. It says, new doors are opening in my mind, in my thinking. I am open and receptive to new ideas, new inspiration, new ways of doing things, new ways of looking at life. I look for the spiritual reality behind all appearances. New doors are opening in my relationships. I commit myself to being a channel through which God expresses ever greater measures of love and compassion and understanding. I find effective, meaningful ways of communicating with the people in my world. New doors are opening in my affairs. New opportunities arise in which I can give and serve, and through which I receive increased supply and abundance. When I look upon the adventure of life with anticipation and eagerness, I am rewarded with delightful and joy-filled experiences. Life is forever fresh and exciting with new doors opening continually.
Wow.
And then it quotes Isaiah 43:19. So share that with your wife as the door of that one experience has closed, knowing there's something bigger and better
Yeah.
that's
Amen.
about to unfold for her.
Perfect. I will.
Well, we love you, Sandra.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. You all do
Yeah.
great things. So I'll be
Likewise.
promoting yours too. And I can't have you recorded for the radio yet?
Yeah, we've been sending every
Okay,
week,
'cause I
sending
want
an
to listen to
episode.
those. And then I'll put it in our newsletter too, that goes out every month. So
All right, we'll send you some links to the show.
great, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, have a great
rest of the
day.
week. Happy Father's Day in a
Oh,
couple
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for
All right.
spending time with us. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. And